we're going to take the length, and the ID is going to be equal to that index plus 1, right? Minus 1. Oh, wait. Plus 1. Right? Yes. Nope. No, it won't. All right, so we left off. We added an edit command to go ahead and update the status of a food item. And what I didn't do, which is bad TDD, of course, is do my test first, right? So now I have 2 failing tests because I have these on-click functions happening here. So my tests are failing, and my life is falling apart, and got undefined going on here. So I got to fix my test. So let's fix the test. So one thing I could do in the widgets, my food item list, let's create a no op function. All right. So basically, no op, do exactly what it says. Don't do anything. Boom, like that, right? So that happens on the this one here, the purchase. So on click equals to no op. Because when it runs a test, it doesn't know what the function is. It only knows that it's a function, right? So that's all that the assertion test is doing. So now I got 2 pass and 1 failed. So I'm getting closer. That's on my food items here. So let's go to the app. Oh, because when the so now the why is this failing? What? So my assertion came back undefined, but I wanted it to be so. The y. Forgetting y. No. Here. I'm passing that. All right. So okay, hold on. My app. Oh, it's on the app part, right? So on the app test is where it's failing. App default renders correctly. That's right. So remember what we did? What happened here when it first gets it from here? This is undefined, so it's passing it empty here. So that's what's expecting to get here is undefined, and that's going to be in the app test. So in my app test, I can go ahead and pass undefined as any, as so, because that's how it first runs at the app level. All right, there we go. So it doesn't actually care that inside the food items list there's the error I was getting, it can't find length of null or whatever, or undefined. It just cares that that's what it looks like when it renders. So that's what I need to pass to it. Okay, so that works. So now let's create a add food item, right? So now we want to add a food item on here for my widget. Let's come over here. Add food. Can't see, turn my way. Item.csx. And the widget. There we go. Okay, so let's just do it like this. Return a div for now. All right, so okay, so now we're going to create a test for this new file. Add food, not foot, adding a foot item, adding a food item. Let's import it. Import add food item. All right, so okay, we need to have this do something. All right, so some real stuff here. So actually, no, I'm going to change this name. I don't like the name. Because that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be a form. Because remember, I wanted to get into the forms for working with Dojo. Change that function name there. Let's change this to form. So there we go. Yes. Always update imports automatically. Update that one there. Okay. All right. I gotta save it. Okay, so it's gonna be a test. I think this works. Boom. There we go. This form's actually going to be coming from source widgets. Bam, there we go. So it's an empty one at first. Did this thing? It did it to me again. It's using the old school testing in the widgets in the widgets. Replace that. Don't like that. Assertion, not assertion template. I don't know if those are still there or not. They might be there. I really can't say for sure. Renderer. There we go. Now that will pass because I haven't really done anything yet, right? So this is going to be a form. So I've cheated and I've kind of done this already somewhere because a little more involved. All right, so there's my form. I'm gonna have a text input. I have widgets in here. So let's go ahead for my assertion. Instead of returning divs, we're going to return a form. This form is going to have a name. The name is going to be the add food item form. I need a very similar to what I did here. I need this no-op function. These are just tests, so I'm not really creating little helper libraries for my test. I don't really need them. You could have a whole little library of helper methods like this no-op thing, but I don't think it's really worth it. Okay. So I got my form. Now the one thing to know about the form widget in Dojo is that it doesn't just return form elements, right? It has some logic built into it. It's kind of got a built-in form middleware to do validation on the fields, make sure things are input correctly, whether they're required or not. It's got some cool stuff, some really cool things you can do. So what it does is it returns a method. Now, for testing purposes, we're not going to care what the method signature is. We only know that we want to return some stuff. Right, so the first thing I'm going to return is going to be a div. Actually, we're going to wrap this whole thing in a div. The entire contents of my form. So we're going to wrap that in a div. We're going to have a first text input with a key for food. I'm going to say that yes, it is required. The initial value is an empty string. On values, this is when the value changes, what should I do? When I want to validate the value because it's required. So because it's required, you want to make sure that it's validated and then whether or not it's disabled. And I'm just going to say disabled false, right? And then what's the label going to be? So instead of having a label and the input and stuff in here, this is kind of how you define what that's going to look like, right? So very similar. I'm going to have another form for the cost because so when I add these in here, these are what I'm going to be doing. A second. There we go. See, now Vim would just do all this stuff so nicely for me. So my cost is going to be a type of number. So it's like an input type number. Step is going to be in nickels, 5 cents, so 0.5. P is cost, required, true, blah, blah. We're going to change some of these in the actual widget itself. You'll see. But for now, we're just going to keep it like that. And then I've got a button to actually add the food item, and I'm done. So let me add that button in here, like so. And it's going to be a submit button. We'll leave it disabled as false for now. And it's just going to say add food item. And it's a submit button because when the form is submitted, I want to do something. And we'll see what that looks like. So do this, run my test. It should fail because my widget looks nothing like this. Right, completely bombs. So let's come over here. Let's take these, bring them in here. Add food item widget. Like so. Let's go ahead and grab, copy everything here. This is going to be kind of my expected template here. What I want this to look like. I do not have a no-op. So for now, I'm going to cheat, add a no-op over here. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so this should just work now. So my test should now pass, then we're going to refactor. So, okay, test pass, UI is set up exactly what I want to have that added at. So now what I want to do is I want to actually have it in here. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this just because the path is the same. We're going to call this add food item, and we're going to bring in the add food item widget, add food item form, form, and then we're going to add that under. Now my app widget should fail because I'm not showing the add food item in the app widget. So let me go ahead to the app widget over here. Let me bring in my add food item form. Come on. Widgets. Boom. And then we're just going to put it right over here. Like so. Now this should pass. Passed. And let's run it. And let's just see what it looks like real quick. I'll probably stop it. So I'm going to be doing stuff that's going to make it not work. Okay, so this is the form that we can use to add it. And add a food item in here. And you can see right now I can just start clicking on this. And it's good to go. It's going to let me click. Even though this is not valid. See, please fill out this field. All right, I haven't, these are required fields. So I get these little notices. I need to fill this out. This isn't valid yet. So I shouldn't be able to click this. I need to make this disabled. This is not valid. So how in the world do I do something like that? So here's what I'm going to do. Here's how you do this with the form widget middleware. All right, so let's bring in the form. It's called form middleware. So let's bring in the form middleware. So import. It's a destructured here. Dojo widgets form middleware, and it's just called very creatively form middleware. This is just a type, so that I can type this out in here. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say that there are some things I get with the form middleware. I get a valid method to validate things, disabled. So now I'm going to type this, because remember I brought this interface in here. And I'm going to type it to the food item. All right, so now the, so bring it correctly. So now the fields I'm going to get are going to come from there. So this works similar to kind of the operations stuff that we did in the processes. So I want to get the values for the food off of my stuff. So that's going to be equal to the field method. I'm going to pull the food off of there. And is it required, yes or no, for the second argument? Well, yes, it is required. I'm going to say it's required. And then the same goes for the cost, equal to field and cost. Is that required? Yes, you cannot, because if you look at my my data, they are not optional, right? The cost and the food are not labeled as optional in the interface, so they are actually required in here. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to leave that required as there. So the initial value, what I want to do is I want to get the value up here as so. off of the food, right? So this is how you pull the values out. That should return a string. On value, I'm going to update it with whatever the new, so as I'm typing in here, I'm going to call the value method and pass it its new value. All right, so that's how you can do that. And on validate, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say that food called valid method on there and validate it, right? Okay, that's how that works. And disabled, okay, so we do the same thing over here. So I'm saying it's required true, but now we're going to do it for the cost. So cost values, I'm getting my value. I pass this one here, so cost dot value. It's going to update the value for me. Oh, we'll get to this in a second. So this needs to be 2 fixed 2. All right. Oh, I'm gonna have to do something right now. You see, oh, look at that. It's trying to do the. So it's trying to make sure that this is going to be my is it no coalescence? I can't remember. Let's try to make sure this is going to work here. VS Code is using TypeScript 403, but Dojo is using 3.405. Not a big deal. We'll take care of that in a second. Okay, let me finish this up. So cost that value. Cost dot valid, and then disabled is what I say. Cost. Come on. Cost dot disabled. All right. Okay. And then this disabled here. So the button here is going to be, so if it's not valid, so it is disabled if it's all the data in the form is not valid, or if everything has been matched up as disabled. Okay, so then that'll disable it. Right now we're getting errors because we're on the wrong version of TypeScript. It's okay, so let's do, what is this, npm updated, I think it is. All right, so okay, so let's come over to package.json. Let's update 4.05. tslib, let's update 2.0.3. Come on. 3. Might as well update globalize. I don't think I need to. So update globalize 1.6. Big. And the types for I mean, I don't need this, but if I were doing some blocks stuff, I might, but I'm not, so it's a big deal. All right, so let's do an npm install, update all of our packages for everything. And let's do npm run dev. Let's run a dev build real quick. And now I should be able to use this in the latest version of TypeScript supports this. There we go. And if I that, and we're set. Okay, so now we're good to go. Because this value could be undefined in here. All right, so yeah, if you're gonna do something with it, you can check. Remember, we don't pass. We pass like an empty array and stuff, then there's nothing to show in here, right? There's no food. There's no initial value for the food value and stuff. So okay, there we go. So we got this in here. That's how you work with the forms to make things do some cool stuff. So now what we need to do is we need to have no op still here for the submit. So we need to have a command in the process to be able to add an item, right? So let's go ahead and work with that. Okay. Where am I at? Processes, food items process. Let's do, so we had an edit. Let's do an add. Const add food item command equal to command factory. And it's going to take a food item as my payload. Async. So I am thinking about this for a second. I'm just adding a food item. I don't need to necessarily worry about something. I'm only adding it. I'm not providing an ID. It's up to me to provide the ID here. So const item is going to be equal to the payload data. And the ooh, this is a good one. Okay, first let me do this. So the index is going to be equal to state dot food items length or 0. I guess it couldn't, at this point, it shouldn't be false anymore. This kind of why I like the operations too. The operations would handle errors if there's like a false. It would catch. It let me get around checking for those things. But okay, let's leave this. I don't think it should ever be undefined at that point. We would have ran this one here at some point. We're going to take the length, and the ID is going to be equal to that index plus 1. Right? Minus 1. Oh, wait. Plus 1. Right? Yes. Nope. No, it won't. Let's assume that I am removing and deleting items from the list, right? If I delete an item from the middle of the list, I've shrinking the length of the array. But if I just get the length, I'm going to repeat the ID, the last item in the array, if I didn't account for the item I removed. So what I want to do, I want to get the last item in my array, and that is going to be state dot food items at position of index minus 1. That's, I was going to do some destructuring and do some weird shift, I think is what I wanted, but you know what? No. It's silly. Okay, so now let's go ahead and say that my ID is going to be equal to if I've got the last item or not. Oops. So if there's a last item, then the ID is equal to the last item ID plus 1, or it's equal to the index. Bam. There we go. Like so. And the status is going to be false. Bam. There we go. Now what I can do, state dot food items push. Actually, you know what? I don't like that. Is equal to state dot food items item. There we go. I prefer that over push in this case. Yeah, because I'm not using it yet. So I need a process here for that too. Okay, so let's export a add food item. Process. Da, da, da. Bam. There we go. It worked now. Okay, now I need to use it in my add food item form. All right, so we're going to bring in the store again, which I did here. So let me just copy a little bit here. Wish there was a way to consolidate that. Because I'm always going to use the store middleware. I'm going to use something for process. I don't think there's need to. I think just the way I'm doing it. Way to do it. Okay, so now what I do is I get my middleware and I get my store. Boom, boom. Oh, geez, man. Okay, there we go. Now we got it. So now I'm going to say is that const add item. There's that add. Like that. There we go. Add item is going to be equal to store.executor add a food item. And then on submit, so when you submit, you actually get back an object that is going to contain all the values of your fields, right? So it's something called, I think it's in the doc, everywhere it's called as values, right? So I'm going to take this, actually be a food item object. I don't know if it's going to work. Call like that, food item. Yeah, that works. Now I'm going to say add item, food item. Boom, like so. I don't need that no op anymore. That. Everything else works here. Save it. Cross your fingers. All right, let's come in here. Let's say beer. Beer is going to cost me $9.99. Oh, a to fixed, not a function. What? Is that because it's null? When I say on value, here, you need to tweak it a little bit, right? So what I'm going to do is I get the value that I'm given, my string value. And I'm going to call the cost.value, pass it as a number, like so. All right. Now, beer, $9.50. Now that works. That's where the problem is. So, I had done something weird over here. It actually should work. I don't need to do that. I was getting paranoid. That'll work. Okay. That's what it was. Threw me off. But you just gotta remember that when you're working with forms, that kind of thing is gonna happen. 100. Jesus, expensive beer, man. That's some fancy ass Pliny, right? Okay, so now we need to edit. I just talked about the edit. Okay,